Wedger for tonight's crime theory. And we've got Emily Bryson with us tonight, who is going to tell us about her work in the realm of SRA. Jon is going to remind us again about the just harrowing work and the realities of SRA. Then we're going to touch a little bit on Emily's husband Ian's story that you're going to hear about later on in this week. We've got a whole week of special content that I've been working on for you guys. One of them being the How Could They documentary coming out. And, you know, it's going to be a harrowing week, sadly. But it is what it is. That's the reality of the work that we do. And Mr. Jon Wedger, okay, you know, he's all over the place. He was in Bosnia. Okay, he's back now. He's doing his thing. How you been, Jon? How's it been? How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. I've been doing a lot of writing this week because I want to get the book finished. It's finished, but I'm proofreading and doing a rewrite. So hopefully, and the thing is, the more I'm rewriting it, the more I'm realizing I've missed that out. I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I don't realize how much material I actually did have.
You look like you're a little wound up, but you're not wound up in a rage way. You're wound up in a goddamn how do I fit all this in way. Like you look like you've got a bag big enough for 10 lemons, but you've got 30 lemons, right? And you're like, how is this going to work? You know?
Yeah. No, it's just gone very, very busy. It's just really what's happening in the world and things that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Have now come into fruition. I mean, I've just been contacted by people, maybe 10 people a day, wanting help with bits and pieces. Usually it's child court issues. Difficult one because I'm not a lawyer, definitely not a family court lawyer. I've got experience of it, and all I have to say is it's just tough. It's hard. And, you know, you just can't let the wolf in. And when you end up in the adversarial system, what happens is the other side will use everything they can to throw at you, and you've got to accept this, you know. And like I always say to people, look, stop going on about the truth. The legal system ain't based on the truth. It's based on a thing called proof. And if you haven't got provable, tangible evidence, and it's written down, you haven't got anything. And it frustrates people when they sort of get the hump with me, but it's just how it is. It's a very, very tough scenario. So, but especially with the ritual abuse stuff, you know, I got mocked and I got ridiculed, and to coin a phrase, I got demonized for talking about this stuff. You know, but it's coming out. We're seeing it, and we're seeing it happening, and we are seeing changes in the world that can only be classed as biblical, and this has been prophesied in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and we're seeing it happening. We're seeing it lay out before our eyes. So just watch this show. It's going to get busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it always shocks me every time that you sort of retell the fact about the ridicule and that the people don't believe the I mean, it's one thing if it's Jon telling you and you're like, I don't really know Jon, maybe I'll take it with a pinch of salt. That's crazy enough, a concept, right? But when you're dealing with a survivor or someone who's telling their story, and you know yourself, Jon, there's certain things in certain categories of abuse that are repeating patterns throughout various survivor stories, right? There's similarities within. There's just certain things that people don't make up. You know, when people start talking about smells that trigger them or colors or, you know, certain types of socks, you know, like for people to then turn around and say these people are crazy or they're making this up, it's a concept that I could never get my head around, Jon.
But yet they do. The mainstream media does it. You know, we get magazines like Private Eye that always seem to attack anyone who speaks about ritual abuse. Daily Mail, so many of them just dismiss it, and then victim blame, attack the victims. And also, unfortunately, a lot of the victims suffer from mental health problems, And
Mhm.
if you think that's not going to be used against you, well, you're very much mistaken. It will definitely be
Well,
used against you.
we've talked about the creation and weaponization of DID in a lot of survivors, and how great a tool it is for the powers that be to just destroy the credibility of these poor individuals. Like it's an incredible business model that evil has manifested for this. Like it is
Well,
outstanding.
let's look at the truth movement, the truth seekers, which we see sort of arrive on the scene like late 90s, early 2000s. And I really took a massive interest in this. And it sort of really took me a little bit away from reality. It's quite atheistic in its belief system, and the likes of people like David Icke, actually, I find them quite sinister in a way, that because of their atheistic approach, although they will say 99% of what we perceive as the truth, but
Okay.
there's 1% that's anti-Christian, and he comes up as Jesus as just being just another sort of resurgence of people like Semiramis and all these other ancient deities and gods, and that's not the truth. So it's you never know who to trust, what to deal with, and you can get caught up in it and sink into it. However, there are elements to it that are really worth taking note of, and one of them is the people that were speaking out about chemtrails,
Right.
and they're saying that these things that have got aluminium and barium in them, which are main contributory factors, these elements, to Alzheimer's. And of course, over the last 10 years, we've seen this huge explosion in our elderly getting Alzheimer's, whereas
Mhm.
years ago, we didn't. We didn't. And now the British government, 2 weeks ago, has admitted that it has been spraying aluminium and barium into the atmosphere, not only with planes, but also by using container ships, in order to sort of, I don't know, particleize the environment and reflect heat back
Yeah.
into the ionosphere,
Yeah.
and prevent, this myth that I believe is global warming. I don't believe in it at all. But, so they have omitted it for different reasons, but they've omitted it. So what was joked about and laughed about, and those who spoke about it were ridiculed and called nutters, tinfoil hat, and all that.
Mhm.
They were right. They
Yep.
were right. So pat on the back to them. We got to look at cancer.
Yep.
Why is it now 1 in 2 are getting cancer? And I had an argument with someone I worked with when I was in the police, and they said, well, it's just now they recognise it as cancer. And I went, no, this is absolute nonsense, because any unexplained death is subject to a post-mortem. If you
Yeah.
cut someone open and their body's riddled with what do they call it, metatosis? There's this they call it mets. It's gross all over the body. I said, there's no way they would put that down to liver failure if you've got, colonic cancer or whatever. So that's a nonsense. They've always known what near enough
Yeah.
what someone's died of. The fact that 1 in 2 are dying of cancer is the fact that 1 in 2 of us are.
Oh, John has talked his internet into collapsing. Bear with me 1 second, Emily. I will get to your intro. I promise. John has we've lost him. I'm going to move him down here. John, I'll swap places with you.
Sorry, I seem to have lost you.
Yeah,
You
you're
there?
back. Oh yeah, you're back, damn it. Yeah.
Sorry, I've lost you. And the same sort of goes for child abuse stuff. That the police dismissed it for many years. They would never have entertained a major celebrity, a member of the royal family, a politician as being an abuser. They just wouldn't have entertained it. And anyone who come forward and spoke about it was either ignored or they were sectioned.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing that actually it's not the case. And some of the victims are very difficult to deal with. And some do have drug addictions and mental health problems, because that's a byproduct of being abused. This is what happens. You can't expect no sort of backlash from this. You put a child through this horrific abuse, there's going to be issues. There's going to be problems. One way or another, it's going to happen. But we are now seeing it come out, whether it's through government inquiry, whether it's through high-profile arrests or whatever, if the police do or don't do anything about it, at least one thing is, it's now in the public domain. And when it comes out, they'll remember people like myself and Billy Maloney and saying, these guys were on about that years ago. They was always telling us this was going on. And it's now the whistleblowing officers, and there's a handful of us that have done it. Someone said, was it worth it? Well, on many levels, it wasn't worth it because of the trauma and the loss that we all went through in order to bring this out there. But on another way, it was massively worth it because I genuinely believe that we've stopped many people from suicide because they realised that there are honourable people like myself, Lenny Harper, and many others that have spoken out, and it stops the British government ever doing it again and lying and bullying police officers not to say anything. We sort of cleared the path and made it more easy, and they can now refer to people like myself, people like Lenny Harper, and say, these guys. I was different because I was the only one who spoke about ritual abuse stuff.
Do you think, though, John, right, and just give me a quick summary of this, do you think that we're moving towards now in 2025, people are more prepared to deal with these realities than they have been before? Because I think for a lot of people, they write things off simply based off the fact that it's too much for them to process. You know, they would rather just write it off.
Well, look, people won't believe in it, yet they'll sit and watch conspiratorial films like James Bond and Men in Black and stuff like that, which is a veiled allegory. That's all it is. And yet they'll live in this sort of comfort world where they can switch the film off and go, well, it doesn't exist. But if it did, it's incredible. Well, the thing is, you know, all of it is allegorical. And when you've got people like George Lucas, you know, George Lucas was an advisor to NASA for many years, you know, and some of the things that he's put in his films is biblical. When you look at the names of the characters, even Anakin, Luke Skywalker, call him Anakin. The Skywalkers are mentioned in the Bible. In the world, the Anuks, there was a tribe of Anuks.
You are side questing hard. You are side questing hard here, John.
Well, the Anuks were the giants. They're mentioned in the Book of Numbers. That they were the ancient giants, the 30-meter tall Nephilim or whatever they are. So George Lucas knew what he was doing, and even the name of Yoda is mentioned. It's a biblical name. Yoda is a biblical name. That they're all in there, but they'll just say, "Oh, it's just coincidental." These people live in a world of coincidence and fantasy.
I'm with you. I get what you're saying, right? I get what you're saying. So, do you think people are more prepared now in 2025 to deal with the realities of all this than years ago?
I think TikTok, YouTube has gone a long way. People's media has gone a long way. There's a lot of crap out there and a lot of nonsense, but there is a lot of good stuff out there. But what it does, it also sends out a false sense of security, because they'll say, if I take myself an example, well, Jon Wedger did this, so I'm going to do it. I'd warn people, be very, very, very careful and mindful if you're ever going to do what I did. And I'm going to give you the reasons, right? You must be clean. If you're going to speak out against the establishment, you must be clean. You can't have any convictions. You can't be having affairs with other women. You can't be scamming banks. You can't be harboring cocaine addiction. You can't have any of that, because they're going to find out and it's going to be used against you, and you will be destroyed and you will be brought to your knees. You will. No two ways about it. You will. And if you think that you can take on the British establishment and win, you are an idiot. Because you can't. I mean, it's impossible. You either get killed or you end up like Tommy Robinson, banged up in prison. Right? It's as simple as that.
And we've seen that over and over again. But
yeah, that's right. You will not. You might have little victories. I had a little victory. But I did get warned by the intelligence services. They warned me. They said, there's a line, please don't cross it. And sometimes you have to, and it's not cowardice. I think I've proved my guile, my strength in how far I can go. And I think I've gone a bit further than than your average fella has. So
Yeah.
I'm not interested in anyone who wants
Yeah.
to brandish me a coward or anything like that. What I'm saying
I don't
is,
think
you know,
anyone would call you a coward, John. I don't think anyone would do that.
look, what you've got to understand is this one. It's not about winning the fight. It's about winning the race, finishing the race, right? Finish the race. Finish the race. Don't win the fight. You know, and there's a world of difference in that. You know, if all you want is that victory, no, your
I'm
main
with you.
thing is that you get home for your family. That is the most important thing. You get home for your family and you keep your family together and you keep strong. That is the ultimate goal. In prison, you what use are you? You're no use.
No, I'm with you.
It's game over. They've
Well,
won.
look,
Once you go to prison, they've won.
spicy Jon Wedger this evening. But Emily, look, thank you so much for being here, Emily.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And just, you know, like John's a very passionate individual when it comes to all of this. I'm very passionate about this, and I know you are as well. Can you just introduce yourself a little bit to the community and then take us through some of the work you've done, your experience, what you've seen in regards to SRA, and then we'll sort of gravitate forward into you and your husband's story and sort of set the stage for everything that's going to come out this week with everyone. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you, guys. You are an answer to prayer. I kid you not. Well, yeah, my name's Emily, and I didn't get into this world, this knowing about SRA and the evils in this world until I met my husband. So I have to talk about him a little bit in the beginning. But he introduced me through his story to the reality of SRA. I remember when he first told me like his story. It was the second time I ever met him, and he told me his whole story. I was like, wow, he's a very honest person. Okay, I like that. But I was like, what the heck is ritual abuse? Like, why would a loving mother take her daughter back to a cult? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But then I started reading about it myself. I started going to conferences last year and just listening to testimonies of survivors. I really started with Lisa Meister's podcast. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's amazing.
Okay.
Only God Rescued Me. I learned a lot on her channel in the beginning, and just that all of these same stories from people across the world were coming up. Like crazy stuff that you just could not even imagine, but it's real. And
100%.
so, yeah. So I was also introduced to God, who Jesus is, when I met my husband. I was into New Age stuff before that, just kind of seeking spiritually, and had some interesting experiences that showed me that the spiritual realm is very real and love is very real, but I didn't quite know who Jesus was yet until I met my husband. And he was just so gentle in like teaching me about the Bible, and I started reading it myself. I'm like, could it be this obvious? Could the answers really be just in the Bible? I'm like, wow. But yeah, and SRA is in the Bible too, like passing children through the fire, sacrifices to Molech and all these false gods. So it goes back, like it's in the Bible. So let's see, I just kind of started praying about what I could do, like little me, what could I possibly do to be helpful in exposing this and helping people get out of this, helping people heal. And eventually, I mean, it was made clear to me that I was going to help people that have gotten out of these cults to heal, to deprogram. And so someone asked me if I wanted to help this specific person, and I said yes. And it really started there. And that was a little over a year and a half ago. And I've learned so much just there with this woman, with this survivor, in prayer. And it's all just like guided by the Holy Spirit. And he will bring stuff up that he wants us to focus on. And this is a great book. I learned a lot in this book. Patricia Baird Clark, Restoring Survivors of Ritual Abuse. And it kind of outlines the goals of healing and of this kind of ministry, because I'm not professionally trained at all. I've just been reading, and I've been talking to survivors, asking them how they've healed, and just getting involved in the community has been the biggest thing where I've learned so much.
Yeah.
But some of the goals for healing, remembering the abuse, which is intentionally like tucked deep away because the perpetrators don't want people to remember. The emotions have to be released. Any demons have to be dealt with and cast out, removed. This is huge. Lies need to be replaced with the truth. Like programming and how the cult operates is all in lies. Very powerful. And start from childhood, start in the womb. Like those lies run deep.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to root them out, you know? So the person must be comforted and reassured. Forgiveness is a part of this as well. And then just any like curses or vows that were made. There's something called magic surgery.
Yeah.
We just break all those things in Jesus' name. And it's amazing because everyone has a very intricate inner world, and not one is the same. Like no two are the same.
Of course.
So, and I don't know what that looks like for each individual person. So it is up to, it's just me relying on God, relying on the Holy Spirit and Jesus, who does know the intricate details of everybody's inner world and what's needed, and what a person is ready to face, what a person is, you know, ready to heal from and remember. So yeah, it's intense, really intense.
When you started out doing all this, when you started your research, were you seeing similarities and things that were present in SRA survivors? And it's such a brutal subject because of just the levels of horrors that some of these kids, these individuals, these young people, even and adults are dragged through with regards to it all. And when you hear the stories and you hear what's happened, it's so much more troubling because there's this level of the ritualistic side, then there's the religious and the magic and all of this stuff that's boiled into all of this, that's designed to fragment the survivor, the victim. And sadly, you know, a lot of them don't make it later in life. And what have been the things that have stood out for you in cases that maybe you've seen repeating patterns, or that have stood out, that have convinced you of this all being real? Because again, people do still argue that all of this is just made up and fabricated, and it's a frustrating reality for everyone trying to expose it.
Yeah. And I struggled with that too in the beginning, which I think is kind of normal. Like, this can't be real. Like, and then I went through phases of paranoia. Like, I read Kathy O'Brien's book to start with, which might not have been a good idea because that was really intense. But I was very paranoid for a time. And there's like a cognitive dissonance where it's like, I believe it's real. And at the same time, I'm like, that's not the world I know. So it's hard. And I think it just takes time and a commitment to continue to learn and be like, I'm willing to learn whatever is true. So like, I want to know the truth. So one of the big things I would say that is very similar in all SRA stories is, well, first of all, amnesia. I mean, like, no memories of their childhood, except like a very few, and often they're only positive ones, intentionally. Like, oh, I had the best family ever. when it's like, wait a minute, there were all these other problems. Why do I believe that? Also, body memories are huge, like abreactions, when people are like, their body is basically reliving and releasing the trauma that they went through. So, I mean, people will like break out in hives. They'll feel like there's a needle being injected into their arm. They'll feel like their skin is being peeled off, or like, I mean, there's just a whole list of horrible physical things that survivors go through. But those are undeniable. I mean, they are physically experiencing those things, or they'll have like weird health problems.
Is that present in cases where amnesia has blocked them being able to like work through the trauma, and it's the body trying to expel it in some way or cope with it in some way because it has been forgotten or regressed in some way?
Exactly. There's a disconnect intentionally from the body, the emotions, and like the conscious mind. So yeah, especially when survivors get to a safe place and like they're out of the controlling environment where like the mind control and the abuse was taking place, then the body, the subconscious, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, knows that it can start to process these things. And so they'll start getting flashbacks, they'll start getting memories, or body memories. And I would say like 99% of the time, maybe 100% of the time, they think they're going crazy. They're like, this can't be real. I don't even want this to be real. Just lock me up and just forget about me because I don't want to deal with this. Like, no one wants to be a survivor. Okay. And if someone is speaking up about being a survivor, that is one brave person that you just encountered, because
100%.
they are getting a whole lot of pushback and attacks, and it's not a safe thing, but they're counting the cost, and that's what we all have to do when we decide to speak up.
100%. And Jon, that's one thing you just touched on there, is the price some people pay for speaking up and pushing out truths. What Emily was saying there, Jon, about the regression of memories and this amnesia, is that something that you've seen as well, where memories are fragmented and things like this, and it's almost having to be pieced back together?
Well, it's on two different levels, right? Because when you abuse a child, you physically damage them because the child's body isn't built for an adult. But trust is shattered, right? This is even going near the ritualistic side of it, right? And that person will never be the same again. The one that's meant to love them is now doing this to them. The confusion that comes into it, the pain. And then we got to realize is the ritual side of it is deity worship. It's negative deity worship. When Lucifer fell from heaven, he took with him, with the swoop of his tail, a third of the angelic realms. They were cast down to the earth, and they dominated the earth. And the devil is a prince of the earth, right? And he needs adornment. So one of the things that the Satanists, the Luciferians, do is that they have a ceremony called the 5 I wills. They're called the ceremony of the I wills, and it's the book of Isaiah, in which the devil proclaims that I will, rise above the clouds. I will make my throne in the heavens. I will this, I will that. But he finishes off his 5th I will. Is I will be like the Most High. So it's everything is like replication and a bastardization of what the Creator gave us. But he's full of pride. His sin is pride, and he needs worship. And devil worship, Satanism, juju, witchcraft, Santeria. There's Indonesian stuff. There's stuff that the Gypsies follow. The Romanians do it all. It goes on and on and on and on. But it all is the same thing. It's a worship of the fallen angelic realms. And when you enter into this, you are entering into a curse. So anyone who thinks they can go and look at this, that do not know who the man Jesus Christ is, you are walking into a curse, and it will saturate you, and you will start seeing your life fall apart. Now, what part of the abuse of a child, if a child is born intergenerational, so the majority of SRA is intergenerational. And Jesus Christ shed his blood for us, so no blood should ever be shed. So the demonic worship is about bloodshed, blood ritual, because the life and death is in the blood.
Yeah, 100%.
So you will see blood rituals take part, whether it's animals, chickens, dogs, cats, whatever. But the strongest life force is that of a human. And when you take it to the one thing that the devil hates, which is innocence, it is that of a child, right? So people pay big money for rituals to be done with the sacrifice of a child. Now, that could be that, for instance, I was given the name of a world champion British boxer,
Okay.
who went screaming to Jesus Christ because he had gone to a voodoo juju practitioner, worshipping the ancestors and all that blah blah, because he wanted to be a world champion, and he did become a world champion, but it came at a monumental cost, and he went screaming to Jesus Christ. It won't take a genius to work out who this guy is, and because there's part of his testimony out there that will say it. That I've heard of a footballer, the torso in the Thames, aka the body of Adam, the West African toddler's body that was fished up in the Thames, ironically by the team I was serving on the River Police. I was told that was done for a Premier League footballer of African descent who wanted to be the best footballer in the world. So, this is why they do it. If you go to Uganda and countries in that part of the world, even when there's big building projects, they will the building contractors will sacrifice a child for the prosperity. So do it for prosperity reasons as well. And it still goes up. But if I just give 2 seconds on this one, right? But what they do with the children that are born into this, these children are used really as sexual slaves, and they are used also to take part in the sacrifice of the infant. So they will get a 6-year-old girl, for example, and I've spoken to quite a few survivors. I've even spoken to one former police officer who was born into a satanic family in the United Kingdom, who admitted taking part in a satanic ritual because her father was an active Satanist. So they'll use the child, usually under the age of 7, and they'll use them to kill the baby. That child will then be subject, the one who's done the murder will then be subject to a sexual orgy, which always takes place. There's always a sexual orgy. But these memories are far too powerful and traumatic for a human being to live with. So we need memory in order to live. So you need to know that if you touch a hot coal, it will burn you, so you don't ever touch it again. So there's a trauma connection to that, but that's normal learning. You also learn like not to cross a busy road, because if you do, you die. Your body needs memory to know how to for motor functions like the fingers and your hands. So we need memory. They don't really know where memory's stored, but the theory is it's stored all around the brain, and you need to access these memories every time you do something in life. But with this trauma, if you are to access trauma, and I know this from being what could be classed as an expert in interviewing children of sexual trauma, and it was something I got trained in, and I've done it for real for many years. When you interview a child, you can see when you're going near to trauma, because they will start usually adopting the fetal position, or they'll start protecting certain parts of their body. Women tend to put their hand over their crotch. Men will cross their arms. So when they say that someone's crossing their arms, they're hostile. No, they're not. It's a protection mechanism. So that's why body language is a very inexact science to base the premise of a decision on. It's far deeper than that, right? but these traumatic memories, they don't go. You don't have amnesia. What happens is they get pigeonholed. But when the brain pigeonholes something, a traumatic event, it pigeonholes it in infinite detail, and it's in there, but it is locked away. And when you do manage through therapy to access it, and sometimes these memories start going out in the ages of maturity, so people will wake up and they will actually be living in one of their memories, but they live it in the most infinite detail. They can smell it, they can taste it, they can touch it. And that's when their life starts to break down.
Yeah.
But also, what they do is that the cult will torture a child.
Hang on, John, just before you get onto that next point. Just before you get onto that next point, John. So it sounds like what you're saying, when something like that so traumatic happens to the child, they completely bury the memory, and then one day when it's unlocked, you know how if you've been dealing with something for 10 or 20 years and you've been thinking about it, and over those 20 years, the memory kind of fades away, right? You remember you start forgetting small details. But in a situation like this, if you're unlocking that 10 years later, are you not just instantly living that memory as if it was happening right?
Okay, so when you talk to a survivor, right?
Yeah.
I would say to anyone, don't just talk to a survivor, talk to their long-suffering partner. Right, talk to them, because these people will wake up in the middle of the night screaming, and some of them jump out of windows, run up and down the road naked, because they are living that trauma. It's come back in infinite detail, right? But mind control is a big part of satanic ritual abuse. So they will torture a child, right? And they will say things like, we're always watching you. That's why you see all of this nonsense, this eye thing. And it's a warning that we're always there. So when you get these actors doing that, F them. They're telling you who they are, but what they're doing, it's a warning. A lot of survivors are paranoid about helicopters. So they'll scream at a helicopter and they will think that MI5 are following them. Because I have a lot of dealings with survivors of this abuse, I get accused of being an MI5 operative. Jon Wedger works for the government. Because these people are mad, right? And it's that paranoia that comes in. And they think, and it's called the saint to the sinner. So when someone is damaged at that very early age, emotionally, they are broken to pieces.
Yeah.
And what they will do, they will idolize someone. They will think that person's a savior, that they've come to help them. Maybe, and I've had it done to me. Jon Wedger's a hero. He's done this, he's done that. But the moment I don't do one thing that they want me to do, or I say something that they dislike, the next thing it's Jon Wedger works for government. He's this, he's that. He traffics kids. He's that. So you in a heartbeat go from the saint to the sinner, and you know then that you're dealing with someone who is very unreasonable emotionally, and that's because of childhood trauma. Now, here's a very, very important thing. With DID, you have these multiple personalities, right? And it can be in the hundreds, but they go a bit like the satanic armies. They go in legions with a hierarchical structure. So you might have one altar, but he controls many others, and they tend to have childish names because it's a child that brings these about. So one of the things that they do to these children is they drown them. They drown them, and then they revive them. If the infamous convicted child murderer Sidney Cook, his thing was drowning a child or strangling them and then bringing them back at the point of death back to life. It gave him a high that he had that power over life and death, right? And that was his thing, right? But some of them, they drown their children and then they revive them.
Yeah.
So later on in life, if that child ends up as an adult in a situation where water is involved, it might even be a leak in the house, they might then go into trauma, and this altar that deals with water trauma, and it'll have a kiddie name like Drippy or Splashy, right? Splashy will come in, and you will actually see a grown person in a heartbeat revert to a frightened child. They'll start talking like a
Okay,
child.
wow.
But Splashy might have Drippy working for him and Soaky or Wetty all under. So what a therapist has to do is amalgamate all of these, and then they get them to look in the mirror. It's deeper because also there's a demonic spiritual attachment going.
Yeah.
So it's not just about therapy. So a lot of people that come to me, because I am a born-again Christian, I believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only Saviour and the only thing that can combat the devil, right? Because God created Lucifer, right? So they come to me, but they hate me because I go on about Jesus. And they say, where was your Jesus who's meant to protect the children? Like it says, if anyone who causes a young one to fall away from me, it's better that they throw themselves in the depths of the ocean with a millstone around their neck. That, you know, Matthew, Mark, and Luke go on about this, about harming the children. But this is what they've done in order to abuse them. They make them fall away from God. And so they never go back to the one thing that will really make them wholesome. Therapy will do a good job and deliverance might help, but they can't be exclusive of each other. You know, they've got to be together. So you do get the zealoted Christians that think everything is down to demonic. And then you get the therapists who don't believe in it. You've got to have this. The successful therapists are the ones who combine the two worlds. Now, you can bully and torture someone not to talk. So when you try and get the truth out of someone who's been ritually abused, it could trigger an altar to take over, and that altar could, for example, cause self-destruction and cause that person to be suicidal, right? Because that is the programming, right? But the one thing that even the Nazis and the masters of torture could not prevent someone from doing, and that is to draw. So art therapy is the most revealing thing. So when I talk to people, I say, if you can draw it. And I've accumulated a gallery of survivors of satanic ritual abuse. Some believe in God, some don't, you know, right? But what they draw, based on their variability, is so consistent, it sends a shiver down your spine. They all draw the same things. And one of the things that the younger survivors draw, when you ask them what were these people like, so many of them draw the little red devil that you see as a mascot for Manchester United.
Right, okay.
I've seen that drawn innumerable times. Innumerable times have I seen that drawn. Again, you'll get the dark eyes or the red eyes. You will get the lizard faces. You get the wearing of the horns. There's so much of black cloaks, but the chief priests wear the white cloaks, and a lot of the venues are in very ancient churches. Can you hear
still
me
there,
all right?
Yeah, you're frozen a little bit there, John.
As long as you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
There you
right.
go.
So now, during the Second World War, London got severely bombed, and up until the Second World War, the East End of London had a church, usually built in limestone. Every 100 metres there was a church. There was more concentrations of churches in the East End of London than anywhere on the planet. It was incredible. But London, the East End, got the heaviest bombing campaign during the Blitz. And they had to sift through rubble. And they started finding in these, especially the ancient churches, they started finding relics, pagan relics, occultic relics. And they found that a lot of these churches were actually built on old pagan sacrificial ground. And even some of the ones in the rural parts of the country, the actual altar that had been placed was some of the sacrificial stone from a pagan temple.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was revisited, but then they also became sites for satanic ritual abuse. So how better than to have a church involved and sometimes a corrupted vicar or priest involved as well? And then who do you turn to? Who do you talk to? If you was to say, oh, Father, so-and-so did this, they'd have sectioned you.
Yeah,
Now, I met a few years ago with the UK's most longest standing and prominent Catholic exorcist. And I said to him, Father, what is the number one most dangerous thing when you're doing an exorcism? And he said, John, I'm telling you now, doing it in the company of a dirty priest. And I went, oh, come on, what do you mean by that? And he looked at me and he went, I've seen your work. You know exactly what I mean. And there's a lot of them in the church. So he means a PDF file priest. He said, if you have one of them who wants to assist with an exorcism, he said, you might as well have the devil himself helping you. You know, so this is the corruption, because the devil is a liar. He speaks a language of lies. He's a murderer, and his goal is your soul, and the target is the children. And we are trying at the moment to get the British government to accept ritual abuse as an aggravating factor for cases of RAPE and S assault.
Yeah.
Like with homophobia, if you punch a gay man in the face and call him a homo, it's aggravated, homophobic aggravated assault. If you punch a South Asian in the genitals and call him a PAKI, it's an aggravated racial offence. Why can't we, like so many nations in the world, have an occultic crimes unit? Italy's got one. America had a very successful one with the NYPD. They had a brilliant one run by a guy called Ralph Sarchi. South Africa has the highest clear-up rate of the murder team is with the Johannesburg Occult Crimes Unit. And on the Occult Crimes Unit, which is one of the highest clear-up rates of murder of any homicide unit in the world, they stipulate two factors, right, to join this unit. Firstly, you must be a murder squad, a murder trained detective. And secondly, you have to be a born-again Christian. And when pressed on it, the guy Kobish Yonka, who runs a unit, he said, anyone who looks into this cursed criminality, if they are not born again, they're not going to see it through to the end of the year. It ain't going to happen. We cannot risk it. And that's an official narrative from a Commonwealth police force. So, but the UK won't do it. But it's a reality. But anyone who speaks out about it, just be prepared to be like I've been, be trashed. You know, I've had dead animals left outside my house. I've been ridiculed by the national media, and even the University of the City of London, their top tutor on journalism, a woman called Rosie Waterhouse, cites me in part of her sort of speeches. She got a dissertation on debunking occult crimes, and she uses me as part of her a sort of nonsense that she spouts to educate people that SRA doesn't exist. And she's seen as the #1 journalist in the UK, and her presentation involves me. And good. I'm glad I'm an enemy of these people. I'm glad I am, because I'm telling you one thing, and I'm telling all your audience this, right? There's going to come a time when we are all going to take our last breath. Whatever you believe in, whether you want to take it on board, whether you ignore it, whether you hate God or whether you don't, you're going to find out. Now, I know that Jesus Christ is real, and I know that devil is real, right? And I want to know that when I die, I was right. I'd hate to die and know that I've been wrong all these years. So just know that the devil is real. He's come for your soul, but not in the name of Jesus Christ. He ain't having it.
We are full on. We got hardcore Jesus John tonight. It's hardcore Jesus John, and nothing wrong with that, right? I just want to I'm just going to put it out there. When we're talking about the SRA, it's real prevalent to remind ourselves of the religious factor that goes hand in hand with the treatment.
Can I just, without interrupting, can I just say something?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So can we go on about terms for the devil, right? Or anyone who worships the devil? Have we ever heard of the term anti-Allah? I've never heard that term. I've never heard the term anti-Buddha, anti-Ganesh, you know, anti-Shiva. I've never heard them things,
Well,
right?
you said that God made the devil. Maybe the other gods just thought maybe we'll leave this out of our creation.
I don't think there's a maybe now. We're talking with absolutes when we're dealing with this. I've never heard it. When we look at swear words, you know, we call out, we blaspheme in the name of Jesus Christ. We don't say, oh, bloody Allah, bloody Muhammad, do we? Right? But I've heard of a term called Antichrist. Antichrist, because do you know what? Jesus Christ, it's Antichrist because he is the antithesis and the enemy of the devil. Muhammad is not the enemy of the devil. Buddha is not the enemy of the devil. The devil doesn't care for them. Maybe he walks alongside them, I don't know. Right? And that's why we don't hear these things. None of this is by accident, right? It's all by design. It's called Antichrist for a reason, because Jesus Christ is the antithesis of this absolute dirty malevolence. And I challenge anyone to cast out these demons in the name of anyone else successfully, because it ain't going to be done. It's done in the name of Jesus Christ. It's real, and it's highly, highly dangerous. I've sat in on deliverance ministry. I've spoken to exorcists. I've encountered on 2 occasions people that have been manifested and demonically possessed in my presence. I even engaged foolishly in a conversation with one which I thought would lose my life. But on the other side of it, I witnessed a living miracle, and it's all about the living. It's all about the life. The other side is what they call necromancy. It's the worship of the dead. The dead can't help you. There is nothing the dead can do to help you. Jesus Christ is different because of a thing called the resurrection. He combated death. None of the others did that. None of the others ever combated death. Right?
Yeah, my God did. My God hung from a tree by the neck for 2 days and gouged out his own eye for the knowledge of man, and he survived that. He was reborn.
Did he die?
Yes. Oh, when he hung from his neck for 2 days. Maybe he didn't die. I don't know. Maybe he's a freaking bad.
No, it's got to be a character death. Now, Jesus, in order to make sure he was dead, they stabbed him through the guts, through the side, you know, and then broke his legs. So it had to be proven that he was dead. So it was proven that he was dead. So it's and there's been many. I'm not debunking. People believe what they want. It's not my job to convince anyone. I really do not care. But what I'm saying is, I don't. For me, it's not a platform to argue the pros and cons of someone else's God, because what we're on about, while we're doing that, we're missing the point. It's like me being an investigator, going out to investigate serious crime and being asked silly questions about Road Traffic Act and, should this happen or should that happen? No, I need to be focused on the serious issue and not detracted. When we're dealing with Satanism, it's not for the light-hearted. It's incredibly serious, and it will take your own life in a heartbeat. You will find your life falling apart. You will be unpicked. You need to be clean. You need to be in a state of repentance. And if the devil can't come for you, do you know what he does? He comes for your children. And I've nearly lost 2 of my 4 children in this battle. Something that I will deeply, remorsefully regret until the day I die for bringing my children in here. But the devil will never play fair. And if he can't get you, he will get those around you and those you love. And it's a dangerous business to be in. And you really must think twice before going anywhere near it, because it will eat you in a heartbeat. But you must finish the race, not win the fight. And
right.
That's I don't mean to rant, but how
you are on top form today, sir. If you're giving us, I don't mean to rant. We're an hour in. We're way past the. You are on top form today, John.
But how can we've been soft and fluffy about such an appalling? And when you look at what goes on, read the books. Emily, there you've got your reading list. Get a book called Dancing with the Devil by Audrey Harper. Dancing with the Devil, Audrey Harper, a former street prostitute. drug addict, who went, in order to get free heroin, she went into a satanic coven where they gave her free heroin. And from the moment she was invited to a ritual, she saw a child get its throat slit and she was made to drink its blood. From the moment she went in, she's a born-again Christian. She may be dead now, right? But she's done a lot of television, United Kingdom girl. I spoke with her for quite a long time. And then she goes on the ins and outs of what they do at these rituals. And it is the S assault and the RAPE of young children and the murder of children, right? And she said everyone there has to take part in the sexual orgy and the drinking of blood. There's no bystanders. Now, there is a former high-ranked detective. I'm not going to name him. One day I'll wish to, and I wish God to do their work on this man. But he claims that he walked in on a ritual and sat and watched it. Did he, Al? He's a liar. He never walked in on anything. The reason he saw it is because he was there as a participant. You know, and it doesn't happen. They are so
he'd be the first man in the world to accidentally walk into a ritual abuse ceremony and walk out alive, John. I'm sure the odd homeless guy have stumbled in and never stumbled out. But you're like that and stumbling out again. It ain't happening.
They'll take the homeless. They'll take the homeless in there. Look, yeah. we've done one of these podcast internet documentaries about a young missing boy called Brian McDermott.
Yeah,
Brian McDermott. Google him, please. Google him.
Yeah.
This kid went missing in the 1970s in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, and the Constabulary of Belfast, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, were told when his decapitated torso turned up in the River Lagan, in the main river in Belfast, they were told this is a ritualistic murder. They were told that from a source, right? They were so frightened, the British government was so frightened of this coming out, right, that they sent an intelligence officer to try and then debunk other cases. So his job was to go out and get blood from butchers, pour it over graveyards and murder pet rabbits and draw pentagrams from a book that he borrowed from the library of what he thought was Satanism, to show it was just kids mucking around. Now what made this more poignant was I was approached by a lady who was from an intergenerational ritual abuse family from Southern Ireland, and she was taken to an area called Donegal, which is just across the border from the Northern Ireland province of Ulster, and she was placed in the underneath of a church in a locked room with a boy that had run away and had been captured, right, from a kid's home. And she said his name was Brian. She said, John, it was Brian McDermott. He was so frightened he'd weed his pants. He was covered in wee. And they brought us out into the altar of a church. And she said, I watched him get his throat slit. And then the guy cut his throat, then cut his arm off and held his arm above his head. And the whole crowd cheered. And she said it was like a wave of electricity, magnetic electricity hit the crowd. And as they did, they went into a sexual frenzy. She was brought up and she was RAPED'd by the crowd, urinated on and all sorts of things, right? And she said, that body, if you speak to the police, you'll find they never said what was decapitated. What was it about him was decapitated? She said it was his left arm, John, his left arm. Now, the reason, and when I contacted the main press agency for Belfast, for Ulster, they got disclosure from the police and said, yes, his left arm was missing. It was missing. Now, the left is important because it's called the devil's side. So in Latin and in Italian and even in Romanian, right, left is sinister. The word sinister. So sinister, you know, we align it with darkness, with evil, but it's called the devil's side. So anything on the left side will get attacked first in Satanism. And even in the Islamic countries, they tell their young virgins to lay on their left so the jinns don't get in at night. So this isn't old folklore. This is reality, and it's real. And the devil's greatest victory is that we no longer believe in him.
Yep.
And that is his greatest victory.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's all around us. And the British government know about it. Yeah. There was rumours that Mountbatten was involved in it. I think our reigning monarch is involved myself. That's my opinion. I think he is. And we're seeing an attack. That the most persecuted.
I'm going to have to push you, John, because we do have a guest.
Well, I'll wrap up now. But the most persecuted religion on the planet is Christianity. You know, not the Jews, not the Muslims. Christianity, the most persecuted race, and we are going to be persecuted even more. And my part in line to this, right? All those that are survivors of ritual abuse. Jesus never abandoned you. He stood beside you. He took every bit of pain that you took. He is with you. You are loved, and your life is precious, precious in his name. And he never forsaken or abandoned you. And I call out to all those who are practitioners of witchcraft and of Satanism. You are worshipping a liar. Don't go to your grave with him owning your soul, because it's eternity. It's not just a life, it's eternity. There is salvation. Stop what you're doing, right? Go to Jesus and go and tell the police and go public about what you know and who's involved. Let's expose all of this dirt and filth to the world. Hold no secrets. Let everything hidden be exposed. And there is salvation for you. It's not too late. But if you stay on your path, it is too late. And that's it. I'm so sorry, Emily. I didn't mean to take up all your time, but God bless.
No,
It's all right, mate. It's all right, mate. You're like I say, you're passionate. You've just come back from freaking your pilgrimage. You're fired up. You're full of the Jesus power. Okay, I feel your passion, John. I feel your passion. And listen, you know, I'm a practicing pagan witch, and I think Jesus is all right. He seems like an awesome guy. Like,
well, he loves you, Ron. You see, he loves you. He loves you to bits.
Yeah, that's right.
And look, whether you're a pagan witch or not, look what you're doing. You're doing Jesus' work by giving me.
I'm all right with it. I'm all right with it. You can frame it how you want, bro. But here's the thing: like, I respect, because it wasn't until this year that I realized that so many people that I know who follow Jesus aren't into the modern faith of Jesus, and for some reason, it took me like 40 odd years to separate the two. And it's really interesting when you hear people who talk about Jesus out with the Christian, you know, textbooks, and they talk about it's fascinating. So for me, there's room for everybody, and I really appreciate the work that Jesus does in the world of banishing the demonic. He's really on top form with that.
And we need to pray for Emily and Ian that they get the full covering of the blood of Jesus, and that child is brought back to where it belongs, and that's in the love of the people that really care for them most. So they'll be in my prayers.
Thank you.
Yeah, listen, I respect it, right? I respect John. I respect all of those who follow a deity, and you know, Jesus isn't a bad one. Out of Jesus and the devil, there seems to be one clear path out of the two. So I'm on board with what John says 100%. Now, Emily.
Yes.
John,
we're going to give John a coloring book, and we'll give him a juice box, and he'll calm down. All right.
I'll just go and refill my cup.
Yeah, go and get a cup of freaking tea or something, mate. Bless his cotton socks. Now, this is the second part of your story. Is your husband Ian and the absolute torment that he's gone through since you met him, his daughter, his ex, this horrific cult, and side chat, you're going to get a brief overview, so don't worry when we get to the end of the show and you're like, well, we want more facts. It's all coming. Emily and Ian and myself, all of this week, are putting together a showcase so that at the end of the week, you guys can see the full extent of this story, the evildoers, how the system has... Anyway, Emily, please introduce that side of the story, and, you know, take us through it. And, you know, just start where you want to, really start at the beginning, start when you met Ian, or even start at the beginning of his journey, however you want to do it. I'm going to be quiet now. It's your turn.
Okay. Could I touch on just something that Jon said as well?
Yeah.
Just something that stuck out to me while I was learning about ritual abuse was how intentional the perpetrators are in mocking the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Like so many of the rituals are around just doing the exact opposite of what Christ did for us. So, for example, where Jesus, he came and sacrificed himself for all, whereas Satan requires multiple sacrifices of like the most innocent lives, right? In any life, but
that makes sense.
Repeatedly, right? So it's the exact opposite. Like communion, like Jon mentioned, they will mock that with the drinking of real blood and with the eating of real flesh of sacrificed beings.
Okay, yeah, like the wine and the wafers you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
Yep. So mocking that, mocking the death and resurrection. So they will bury people alive or bring people to the point of death, like Jon was saying, and then bring them back. That also, it plays with attachment needs that people are born with. So like people need love to survive, right? So if someone is rescuing you, even if they are the one that put you in that position, children especially will view them as their savior, as good. So it's atrocious. Another example is a lot of survivors have the experience of being married to Satan when they're young. And that's just a mocking of like the church is to be Christ's bride, right? And him the groom. So, but they are marrying children to Satan and putting people in vows, in bondage, soul ties, things like that. And just also how Jesus leads, how God is loving. He gives us free will, and he really respects that. Whereas Satan will lead with fear, deception, and just lies, So there's also a good thing about mind control that I think is helpful. It's called the bite model of control. I don't know if you've heard of that, but Steve Hassan, he wrote a book called Combating Cult Mind Control. And the bite model of control, it stands for controlling behavior, information, thought, and emotion. And all of those things, like that's just a very simple way of putting mind control.
Okay,
describing what mind control is. And what it does is stop critical thinking, and it stops like the ability to ask questions, because you're so controlled, you're so in fear, but not even consciously. So it's intended to be undetectable. Like they'll call mind control slaves undetectable mind control slaves, because on the surface they're like living their life. And we're going to see that with Ian's daughter. They are living their life, doing sports, smiling in photos. They have this life during the day, right? And then at night they are put in these rituals, and their day mind is not aware that they are going through these things at night. Right. Or whenever they're going through them. It's like it's intentionally split. So it's like someone can be so good and have like really want to love God and serve God, and then in the same person they are forced, and then eventually they might choose to continue in evil, doing the rituals, the sacrifices.
I mean, it sounds crazy to people, but you can be conditioned to the most horrific things being normal.
Exactly.
And when it's a systematic program. Also, Jon, if you're back, I muted you because there was some crazy noises, but I've just unmuted you, mate, just in case you're back.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, no problems. Also, Jon, we're all sort of collectively in agreement that you can believe in Jesus and not follow Jesus and think he's a pretty swell guy. All right.
Of course, everyone's entitled to believe whatever they want. That's a gift of free will. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty lame response, but I'll take it. So, Emily, you're the story, right? I just want to say, I have to get this out. This is my ADHD. I've not heard the word Jesus said so much in my life as on this live stream. I mean, if there was, because you're Jesus crew, Jon's hardcore Jesus crew, but Jon's like the little kid who's just come back from like soccer practice, who's just won his first trophy or something, and he's now like, yes, I am charged, right? He's freaking on it, man. I love it. I love fired up Jon, right? When he's fired up with his light energy, he gets all serious, right? It's as if we've said something wrong, right? And the way he's getting the information across is as if we're really naughty, and he was like, that's how we're getting it delivered to, and I respect it. But let's get touching on Ian's journey and that story, because yeah, we're getting on in time wise. So
yes,
yeah, let's dive in with that and take us through it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to say with Ian's story that, and like with any story that's complicated, you can't just look at one thing, like, and come to a conclusion, right? You have to look at the whole story and put all the pieces together. And what we end up seeing when you do research and know what ritual abuse is a cult, is a intentional intergenerational cult family that Ian married into. So, I mean, Ian's just an awesome person. He's my best friend. Like we met in 2018 and got married in 2022. And let's see, where should I even start? I think just one interesting thing about Ian that I love is like he's a very independent thinker.
Okay.
So like growing up, and this has gotten him into a lot of trouble. So like growing up, you know, people would tell him things like, oh, drugs are bad. Like, don't have sex before marriage, stuff like that. And he's like, but why? Like, I want to find out for myself. So he did find out for himself. He's tried lots of different things in his youth, and that was used against him. Like Jon was saying, if there's anything like that they can call dirty that you've done, then they're going to use it against you. So, but that quality in him also makes him a really good leader. And he's very strong in the Lord. And I'm really grateful to be on this journey with him. So, I mean, there's so much detail to this story. I think it is important to note that when Ian was around 8 years old, he was sexually abused by his neighbor. That was a 13-year-old girl. And he forgot about that until he noticed the same signs and symptoms that he was displaying as a child in his daughter. So he didn't remember it until his daughter, you know, was showing those signs and symptoms. And so that was just a very personal lesson to him on how memory works. And that also led to a lot of behavioral things and like a mistrust in people, because he tried to tell people, but he didn't really have the words because he was so young. But anyway, he has a bachelor's in sociology and criminal justice, and he has a master's in criminal justice. So he's well informed on
Yeah, sounds it.
Yeah, laws and stuff and how the justice system works in the US. It's different in other places, of course. But so let's go to when he met his first wife, Agata. That's her name.
Okay.
She was visiting from Poland with a visa. I think it was like a 3-month visa. And they immediately like were attracted to each other. he remembers just like locking eyes with her. He didn't care that she had a boyfriend at the time. And he was like, I think I'm going to marry this woman. And he never experienced that before, but they just started spending time together. Happened very quick, but right away he was seeing signs of trauma in her, like some sexual dysfunction stuff. She didn't have a lot of memories of her childhood. She started repeating. She would repeat almost like these robotic phrases, like, the nicest thing my dad ever did for me was bring me 1 cup of tea. Like, she repeated that many times. It's like, what? Like, that's the nicest thing your dad ever did for you? That's really weird. Or she'd say things like, I remember I haven't been married before. Like, oh, that's good. What are you trying to say there? But he was like, I don't care, what problems we're going to face. I love her. I'm committed to her. And so they got married in 2005. And just some signs of some more weird stuff early on in their relationship. When he went to visit her family in Poland, he didn't speak any Polish at the time, but her dad, Sławomir, which you'll hear his name again, Sławomir, he would make weird comments like, I like young boobies. Right. That's really weird.
Never a good thing to hear.
Not a good thing. Like,
nah.
And why would you say that?
Yeah.
You're a creep.
Young. I mean, that. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard those two that sentence in my life. Like,
and he was chuckling. Like, yeah, it was gross.
Yeah.
Agata's grandfather, his name is Valdek. He asked Ian how she was in bed. So things like that. Ian was like, cultural differences, like, okay, like, this is weird, but I love my wife, so let's just do our best here. Like, he was so unaware, like a lot of people are, of how deep evil can be and how involved families can be, how it can be intergenerational.
I think as well, you'll have had that certain aspect of, this is my wife, this is my life now. You'll have wanted to block out, I would imagine, certain critiques.
Exactly. And then in hindsight, it becomes very clear, but in the moment, you just kind of make excuses to normalize it, which is unfortunate in this case. So they had their daughter, Adele, in 2007. So she turned 18 in January of this year, which is crazy. She's an adult now. But she was born in 2007, and Ian just knew his life purpose when she was born. He just was so infatuated and in love with her, and just they were best friends. And he loved raising her. And so she was born in New London, Connecticut. All right. And after a couple years, Agata wanted to move to the Netherlands to be closer to her family in Poland. And Ian wasn't sure, but he went to go visit, and it's a pretty cool place. So he was like, all right, we can go do that. Like, I want my wife to be happy. They were having a lot of issues. They thought that Agata had borderline personality disorder. Okay. He was trying to figure it out. Like, she was starting to go see a counselor because she would have these intense swings. She also had a very intense fear of abandonment. But for a little while, she would just be so in love with him, and they were the best, happiest family in the world. And then it would switch where she was sabotaging things, and she was like, I hate you. And that would last for a little while, and it was terrifying for him. But he was very confident for a time in his life where he was like, I got this. I can handle this. Like I'm gonna figure it out. He did not really have faith at the time. He was like agnostic, atheist kind of mentality.
Not on a path, shall we say. And there was obviously these warning signs that people were seeing. It's often how it goes with troublesome relationships. But obviously there's, the bunny boilers that people try and warn you about, and you get into a bit of a dodgy relationship. This is so much greater than that. I mean, how long was it before their daughter was born? And let's just let's go up to that point. I just want to make sure we get as much of the crucial elements covered. And don't worry, guys, you will get a full breakdown. Okay, there's a 47-page document that comes with this, so don't worry, we will break it down in more detail.
There's also this book that's very, very chunky, but
it's a chunky book.
book.
And just so you guys know, we are going to break this down in more detail. Okay. And I know exactly what you're doing, Emily. You're setting you're doing the sort of character analysis of that, and we will get to all of that. We don't have the luxury of it this evening because we had a very passionate Jon on it, and that's all right, Jon. I know you're still listening. That's okay, mate. We freaking love you, my G. Okay. And if we don't get to Jon's celebrity exorcist story this week, we'll definitely get to that next week, because that's a banger. So
yes, please.
Yeah. So take us up to when Ian's daughter was born, and that started. That chapter began.
Yeah. Okay. So she was born in 2007. So they were married for 2 years at this point. And she was born in the United States, and then shortly after they moved to the Netherlands. And I mean, I can kind of just quickly summarize a lot of this, but they would go, Agata and Adele would go to visits to Poland to see Agata's family. Okay. And whenever they would return, they would come back like traumatized, like different people. Or even when Sławomir, who is Adele's grandfather, would come visit, Adele would be so distraught. And there's pictures in that document that you have, Ron, of Adele after a visit from Sławomir, and she's just like she's like this little 2-year-old girl on the couch, like so sad, and Ian's trying to comfort her, and it's like, what the heck is going on?
But, so just to be clear, we're talking about Ian's wife taking their daughter to Poland to visit her father, or is it her grandfather?
Her father and grandfather.
So taking her to see, taking to see the wife's father and grandfather. Do you mean the wife's father? Obviously, so there's two of them, right?
So Agata, the wife, her father Sławomir, and her grandfather Waldek. But they were also seeing other family. Like
that's fine. It's just so the chat can get. They know the key points to be focused on here. Is Ian's wife going to Poland? It's her father, her grandfather, and this poor little girl. I'm looking at the picture now, of her sitting on the couch, hands.
Isn't that heartbreaking? I know.
It's really sad. Yeah, and these are the key points. So let's carry. I'll let you carry on now, Emily.
Thank you for the clarifying questions. Yeah, chime in anytime. Just another interesting thing that Agata would say when she would visit her family in Poland, she would say, "When I'm here, I'm not yours. I am my dad's." So there's this strong like ownership control thing between Agata and her father, which is, not healthy. Very strong attachment there. Okay.
So this is the image down here. You can see down the bottom.
Yeah, she's just distraught. That's Ian on the couch with her. And the pictures are labeled, but there's Agatha and Ian. And... All right. So when Adele and Agatha would return from visits in Poland, especially in 2010, they would return with signs and symptoms of trauma. So Adele would show signs of trauma such as like bedwetting when she wasn't doing that before, regression, like going to baby talk. She would have nightmares and scream, tantrums. She, like when it was shower time, she would yell, "Not my pee-pee, not my pee-pee," like, because she was obviously abused.
Jon, these are things that you've commented on before as well, that especially the bedwetting was a sign. I don't know if Jon's...
Well, it's a huge sign, bedwetting, of trauma, and so it's things like that, you look out for, and anger, and all these signs are there. This is the sort of thing that they should be teaching in schools.
As a warning.
And in my book, I go on about the initial police training and what they put emphasis on. I mean, we spent a whole week in our basic training, police training, on social issues. One of them was how to greet people with different handshakes from different communities. And another one, we spent 2 days on dangerous dogs. Only half an hour was given onto child abuse. It's just ridiculous.
It's mad.
But one woman, she was a barrister, criminal law barrister, and she was a survivor of satanic ritual abuse herself. And she managed to get a slot on the detective training syllabus, teaching detectives about ritual murders, and if they end up in any ecclesiastical setting, such as a graveyard or in the environment of a church, things like that, they should consider a ritual abuse element to it. She was so well received. All of a sudden, her candidature was revoked, and it turned out it was a complaint by a detective saying it was irrelevant, she shouldn't be doing it, and it can cause trauma. And funny enough, it's the same detective who I mentioned earlier who wrote a book about walking in on a ritual murder.
Wow.
Exactly the same guy. So there you go. But sorry, Emily, that's my bit of input.
Well, it was the point of there was no bedwetting before, and then they've come back and there's signs of trauma. So pick back up where you were saying, Emily. You were just going through the list of trauma.
Yeah. So she would also talk about so Adele's grandfather, Sławomir, his testicles. So she it's all in the book, but she would say like stinky balls. Like, what are you talking about? Just really inappropriate stuff. But she's like kind of like testing things, like testing Ian, like, is this normal, Daddy? Like trying to show him what was going on. But there's a great quote by Alice Miller. Mind if I read it?
Of course.
It's the repression of past torments and its cost render people deaf to the screams of children and blind to the obvious connections. So what Ian went through as a child, which was terrible, but not nearly as severe as what his daughter has gone through. Not that we should compare trauma like that, but it did make him blind to her screams in a way, because he's like, there's no way this could be happening in my home. Like, not in my home. I have a loving wife. If anything was going on over in Poland, like, she would tell me. So unfortunately, he trusted his first wife too much. And so there was, oh, nice. Yep, that's the website. there was a time in Easter where Adele went to Poland to visit for, it ended up being a month because they said that she had scarlet fever, and Ian couldn't go because he had work, and Agata went with her, but left her there because they said that she was so sick with scarlet fever that she couldn't leave or else she would die. So like really weird stuff like that, where they just want access to children. They want access to the children. Also, it is a mind control thing to keep the victims coming back to the controlled environment, because if they're gone for too long, then they'll start asking questions. And we did see that or Ian saw that in his first wife, where when they were together for a while, she would start like remembering things from her past. She would try to put things together. Like she had joy. She like would be at a healthy weight because when she would be visiting Poland, she would have eating disorders, stuff like that. All those are signs of something very not good going on. So anyway, in 2010, they decided that they wanted to move back to the United States. Agata was very excited about that. Ian was very excited about it. It's just a place that he's more familiar with and how like everything runs. So they decided to move back, but she had to get a visa and in order to move back, and that took some time. So in the meantime, while they were waiting for that, Ian had to go back to the United States to get work, to get a place to live, and to get all that situated. So they were apart for about 3 months, and Agata and Adele were in Poland for a lot of that time, unfortunately. But they were in contact. Like in the book, there's like so many emails of just the love that they were, so excited to like start their life together again in the United States and to be together again. Like Agata was very, very loving, almost overly so. But it was December of 2010 that he got back from the United States. They met back up in the Netherlands. And right when he got home to their apartment, he noticed that something was very wrong again, just like the darkness with them. Adele was just totally shut down, and Agata was back in her cycle of like, I hate you and I've always hated you. But this time it was even worse. She started saying more kind of robotic phrases like, I'm taking our daughter back to the cult in Poland. And he's like, cult? Like, what? She's like, my family is a cult. But that was intermixed with her not talking to him, like being stuck in bed with a migraine. Like all of these sayings that I'm about to share were spread out over 3 weeks. It wasn't like one conversation.
Sure.
But it was her trying to disclose to him, like where part of her so badly wants to be out of this cult and wants to save her daughter, and was doing everything that she could to disclose to Ian and break the programming so that this would end. But there is another stronger part of her that had to obey the commands of the cult, because they'll threaten everyone you love, it's terrible what they do.
So could we be looking at these moments where there's this moments of confessions that are happening where she's trying to confess something? Could we argue that we're seeing snippets of her true self, and possibly that who Ian met and fell in love with all those years ago was someone that was invented that was one of her alts from what I imagine she went through. Because I imagine this is history repeating, metaphorically speaking, and it doesn't excuse anything. It's just it would explain these like moments of confession, like I say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. That it is like her true self, her true heart is like, does love Ian, does love her daughter, does want to be free of this.
Could be. I mean, I'm not an expert. She could also just be proper mental, right? It could be either of those things, right? She could be proper bonkers, or it could be something. It could be something like we're seeing these moments where she's trying to do good because she's trying to claw her way out. But again, it's wishful thinking on the side of the human condition, really.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I think only God really knows what her true heart is. But I think the fact that she's even trying to disclose and putting her life in danger by doing that is a testament to her, like her desire. But it's also complicated because she's still in it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
were there opportunities where she could have gotten out? I don't know. So some of the phrases that she was saying in this 3-week span before the abduction was, so my family is a cult. She said, I have something like Stockholm syndrome. She said, my dad has created a red herring. Your drug, psychological, and criminal histories are going to be used against you, and you'll never see your daughter again.
Jesus.
That was one that she repeated a few times.
And you said
again,
these are robotic phrases, right? You said these are the robotic phrases you were talking about, right? Jesus.
Yes. Yep. Another one was like, God doesn't approve of our marriage. She would call Ian a molester. Like if he like touched her leg, she would freak out and be like, molester. She would say, I'm taking our daughter back to the cult for Christmas or New Year's. So at this time, Agata was also holding on to Adele's passport. So Ian couldn't find it. Like he looked everywhere for it. She would not tell him where it was. So she was holding a lot of power in this situation and threatening to take their daughter back to what she now disclosed as a cult. So, let's see. And I think it's just important to note that Ian thought that this was just a cycle that they could get through because they had been through it before. It was worse this time, but he's like, I just have to ride it out. Like, I just have to love her and be patient, and she's going to snap back and be who she really is. And he did have a counselor that he was going to see, Kees de Vries, and he had seen Agata before, and he knew Ian very well. So Ian was like sending updates about what was going on to people, and just trying to like navigate what was going on because he was being sabotaged as well. So like he couldn't go work. She was sabotaging their finances, like just very crazy stuff. So another interesting thing over the last few weeks, Ian like brought a bunch of stuff home from the United States that he thought would be fun for Adele. One of them was the movie Fantasia, which we know is used in programming. He, of course, did not know that at the time. He's like, oh, it's a classic. Like, I'll watch this with my daughter. And just keep in mind, she was a month away from being 4 at this point. So he wanted to like put on the movie Fantasia. It started up. Adele started hyperventilating. Like, that's not normal. And then Agata came in and was like, you can't watch that with her. So stuff like that. just lots of little stuff
Yeah.
like that, you know.
I mean, the things that she was saying in the bathroom, you know, these wet in the bed. I mean, that's horrific enough of a sign. But then to have these other signs, John, have you heard about anything ever linked to Fantasia like that, the Disney movie?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of
It's a weird film.
a lot of conjecture with you know, Disney and hidden meanings, and what they tend to do is they hide everything allegorically. I mean, one of the, you know, the most infamous ones was the work of Stanley Kubrick, you know, and how he would try and put the message out. Because look, with what I've experienced, I would like to really tell the truth.
Yep. All right.
About what I went through, what I've done, and everything else in respect to my policing career and exposing ritual abuse. But if I put the truth out, I'm going to put myself in prison. And quite famously, the ex-gangster from Australia, Mark Chopper Reed, in one of his best-selling books, he said that when he told the truth, it got him another 5 years in prison. So what you do is you put these things out allegorically, put them out there. One of the training videos that the specialised PDF file unit within Scotland Yard would play the those that join these elite teams, and it was called the Snowman video, and it was that Ali Jones song, you know, We're Walking in the Air.
Oh yeah.
And that was played throughout the video, and it was a compilation that these PDF files had put together of their own work. Part of it was a young lad being strapped down to a table and brutally RAPED by a group of elderly, disgusting men, whilst this video was playing in the background and the music. And for years, a lot of the officers that had witnessed it needed counselling at Christmas time, because when they heard it, it would put them straight back. And this is third hand, so these weren't people instantly involved in it. And of course, you get that when guys were coming back from military campaigns. You know, they hear a car backfire, and that was it. It would bring back absolute trauma and terror, because the reality is there. So, you know, we got to understand these people are sick. They really think that they are winning in doing what they're doing. But I spoke to a lady who was heavily involved in Satanism, very heavily involved, and she'd taken part in the torture and the murder of a young boy during a ritual. And she says to me that every time she closes her eyes, the devil's waiting for her. And she told me this on a deathbed. She was terminally ill in hospital and asked to see me, and I went up to pray with her. And she said, he wants his debt paid, John. And I said, well, you just pray, Jesus. There's not much more I can do. And I said, but where was the benefit? And she turned around to me and she said, what you got to understand is that, firstly, and Audrey Harper echoes this in her book Dances with the Devil, one of the gifts that they get given straight away is psychic ability. So they instantly become clairvoyant. She said from the moment she drank the child's blood that she become clairvoyant. She could see wherever her husband was. She knew what he was doing. She one day, when she found out her husband was having an affair, she picked him up and physically threw him through a plate glass window with the strength of 10 men. She went on to meet a guy who was one of the most high-ranked military officers in the country, and ended up marrying this fella. And she said, I have had the most opulent 5-star life. That was her payoff. This incredibly wealthy, opulent life, unbelievable strength, clairvoyance, wealth, all these gifts, you know. That, and there's a book, I can't remember the name of it, and it's about a fireman in America, and he went on to become a national level sportsman in many disciplines, and they couldn't believe this guy's strength, and he ended up having a breakdown and becoming a coke addict and an alcoholic. And he then disclosed that all of this was down to the fact that he had sold his soul to the devil. And the one thing he wanted was unbelievable strength and success with women. And of course, he went on to have, you know, thousands of women and become this. No one's ever broken these fire service sports feats that he's done, because they were like almost superhuman. So that's the short-term trade that these people want, and they get it. And we see that now with the PDF Island, all these people that have visited, the Diddy case and all that. And it's
Yeah.
all these stars. Well, again, stars. What does that mean to you? You know, it was the stars that fell from heaven, you know, in what they call the fall, when Lucifer fell. And it's all idolatry. They all want adoration. And they think that they are something they're not. But really what they are, they're weak people. And they prey on children because they like the energy that it gives them. You know, one PDF file that I interviewed, I said, what is it about a child? I just don't get it. And he said, when we're waiting, he said, have you ever seen heroin addicts that need a hit? And I went, of course, you know, many times. And some of the covert work I did, I spent a long time in crack houses and things like that. And you see them all clucking and awful. He said, it's the same when we want a boy. He said, and I can remember being in a flat once, and they were marching up and down, and then the mobile phone goes, and this fella had managed to procure a kid from one of the care homes, and he said, yeah, we're on way back to the flat. And he said the sigh of relief that went over them, because they knew now they were going to get their fix. So with almost 100% of those who take part in SRA, it's been done to them. It's intergenerational. It's almost a given. With normal, it's not normal, but with the standard PDF file S abuse, it's not 100%. It's a high percentage have relived the circle and haven't broken it. But with ritualistic, it is almost a given. It's intergenerational.
Yeah.
And it's been done to them. These are massively emotionally traumatized and heavily broken individuals.
Yeah.
Their sexual likening is of children. There's every chance that they can't really sexually pleasure an adult. It's beyond them. They have to do it on children, so there's a bullying element to it, and it's just malevolence all round. But part of it is they like the power that the fear gives them. The reaction they see on their child is abject fear and total pain, and they enjoy it. And they do it for one reason, because they can and because they enjoy it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And, you know, the intergenerational factor, that is really what is at the center of your, at Ian's case, is this intergenerational factor. And I just want to say, what we'll probably end up doing, Emily, is scheduling a second midweek live stream with yourself and Ian as well, just before we get everything out, just to sort of reiterate some of the key factors in here. But we've still got a little bit of time. I've pushed forward the next show. So you were up to the point where these robotic phrases were being used, and there were these signs where if we want to give her the benefit of the doubt, and we want to play, here's a bit of humanity, a sliver of hope and humanity, right? Shall we say? That's just in honor of you, Jon. You know, you got to find the good, right? You got to find the good. So,
yeah.
Do you think? I mean, okay, let's give her this. Let's give her that ounce of hope. Let's just say these were cracks in the programming. The programming was failing. She was trying to warn him. You had said that she'd mentioned that it was a cult, right? She said she'd mentioned that she had something similar to Stockholm syndrome. Pick up where you left off just there for us, if you can.
Sure. So, again, this was in like the last few weeks that they were together before the abduction took place. In this time, Agatha also had Adele give Ian a Bible. It was this really weird scene. Like when he describes it, he's like, it was just strange because Agatha was standing and Adele was in front of her, and she told Adele to go give Ian, you know, what was in her hand, and it was this little blue Bible that he still has to this day. So, and again, he wasn't a believer at the time. He's like, So it was super weird to him. But in hindsight, he does see that as Agata trying to point him to the way, like to where the answer is, like to who to run to help them, and not only them, but everyone stuck in this situation. Because he is fighting for his daughter, but he's also fighting for every child, every person that's stuck in this. So, let's see. So she just continued to threaten to leave. She was just stuck in bed for these entire 3 weeks, like not getting dressed, not getting like ready. She was in a deep depression, like a torment, and she had migraines. And so Ian really had to take care of everything, like just feeding Adele, taking care of everything. He was like a single parent for a little while there. But on the last day that they were together, this was December 27th, 2010, Ian went out to just play with Adele in the snow. They had like a great day. They went to the farm down the road. And then Agata started calling him, being like, you need to come home. You need to come home right now. And Ian was very sad that his wife was being so terrible. And obviously she was being tormented. And at the time, he was like, the first time he prayed in his adult life was over these 3 weeks, because he was like, there's something, like, this must be demonic, like my wife is possessed. So because there would just be two completely different people, it seemed. So anyway, he really tried his best to like encourage her and love her and like snap her back to reality, or what he thought reality was at the time. And he wanted her to like come out and play with them, but she would not. And so it was time to go home after them playing out in the snow. Ian got home with Adele and like set up a movie for her, the B movie. They were watching the B movie with like tea and a blanket, just like settling in for the night. Agata was dressed in like makeup, ready to go out for the first time in these 3 weeks since he's been home. And she was saying, like, I need to take Adele to the art store. Like, I really want to get her some art supplies. And he was like, you've been threatening to take our daughter, for the past 3 weeks. Like, you're not going anywhere with her. I'll go with you guys in a little bit. And she's like, no. Like, I really want to take her. And she was like, oh, you're holding us hostage. Like, totally flipping everything onto him.
Yeah.
You're like, whatever. You're not taking our daughter. You have her passport.
It's scary to imagine that playing out.
Very scary. Yeah. Very scary. Yeah. The pressure. So then that plan of hers didn't work. And she called a friend. His name is Mickey. And he was someone that they would hang out sometimes because they had a daughter the same age as Adele. But Ian was not a fan of this guy. He would like smoke heroin around his daughter. And he's like, this guy can't be a part of our lives. But he...
I mean, the signs are so prevalent at this point.
They're so prevalent.
Like, he must be in a state of kicking himself, because he's now just got caught up to where everyone was like 4 years ago. With the warning signs, with the warning signs of the relationship, with who he was marrying, and the people saying, you stay away from her, or whatever it was that they were saying at the start of the relationship. I mean, that must be at this point eating him alive with worry.
Yeah. Well, he's cried many a tear, wishing that he knew more and was better equipped, to deal with this and know what he was looking at. But that's why he's speaking out now, to try to educate people about what this looks like, because it can be normal and look normal for a time, and then there's just weird stuff. And it's like, what do you do with that? Like,
Right.
Of course, he wishes that he took his daughter, got her away from that situation, got her evaluated. Lots of stuff he would have done differently, filed a report sooner, stuff like that. So yeah, so Mickey enters in the picture. He comes over to the house and is like, hey, my daughter Cicely is over at the library, like, and with her mom, Jackie.
Okay.
Like, and they really want to play with Adele. Like, can Adele come to the library? And at first Ian was like, no. Even Adele said no. This 3-year-old girl said no. And it makes me so sad that she had to be that strong to say no, because she didn't want to go. Ugh. But they just kept pushing at it and pushing at it and pushing at it. I think Ian was weakened by just the mental chaos of the last 3 weeks. And so eventually he let Adele go to the library. Because he was like, okay, it's just right down the road. Like, they'll be back shortly. So Agata, all dressed up, like, took Adele. Adele gave her dad a huge hug, like a huge hug, clasping her hands around his neck. And he, like, remembers that vividly. And he's like, why are you worried? Like, you're just going to the library. It was like he was in some kind of trance himself. And that's one of the things he noticed about Agata in their relationship. Like, if she wanted something, if they went somewhere, she was very manipulative and very good at getting what she wanted. So whether she did something to him that night, I'm not entirely sure, but his defenses were weakened and he let them go. And they went down the stairs. That was the last time he saw his daughter. But it was really shortly after they left the house that everything started clicking. It was like her leaving let his brain process everything that was happening. And he was like, oh my gosh, they're gone. Everything she was saying is true. Because he just thought she was, kind of crazy. But everything she said was true, and it all clicked. And he ran to the police station. They wouldn't take a report, I think, because speculation, we don't have like proof of this, but it was really weird that they wouldn't take a report. So we think that she tipped off the police and was like, hey, I'm escaping my abusive husband, because this is the story.
And let's be honest, we're talking about a multi-generational cult. This ain't their first rodeo, right?
Oh, they planned this step by step, like masterfully. Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, I got a little emotional there when you were talking about how she hugged her dad before she left. That kind of messed me up a little bit, I'm not going to lie. And
yeah,
you know what? I think that's a good place to put a pin in it. I think we've painted this picture, taking it right up to the last moment he's seen her. We'll pick this back up midweek, Emily, before we drop the full story, because this is what Ian and Emily are here to talk about this week. The realities of losing his daughter 14 years ago. Okay. And everything he's done to try and liberate her, everything he's done that he regrets, that he's proud of, all of it. And it's a harrowing tale, and it's got to be told, because there are some individuals out there who they need to see some form of justice, because this is absolutely insane. And Emily, we will pick this up midweek if you've got the time anyway, and you and
Oh, for sure.
we'll work around what works for you guys. But I think that's the best place to leave it. And just to reiterate, everyone, please, I've put all the links in the description. Now, if you guys refresh the page, you'll get all of Ian and Emily's links, the website, their YouTube, their Instagram, their book, all of that stuff. Please make sure you show support. The cover art of the book now makes... So I was going to ask if there's a red herring involved in this story, and the sword going through the red herring. It makes complete sense now. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And this is just the first part. Emily will be back. You'll meet Ian as well. And big shout out to Ian, because I could not imagine. Do you know what? I can't even imagine. I can't. It's so upsetting. And we're here for you, Maggie. We're here for you, and we'll do all we can to raise awareness, get this girl back, something, because it has to happen. And again, we'll continue with this story. Jon Wedger, thank you for giving up your time as well, sir.
No worries, pleasure.
Anything else you want to throw out to the Jesus crew before we go? Any more like wisdom you want?
No, we just need to understand and accept that these people are amongst us and they're liars, and and they are connected, and they will do everything to cover it up. But the trauma speaks for itself, and really I go out to all those professionals who do work with children, the social workers, the community workers, and the teachers that may be living in these middle-class ghettos and don't really get to educate themselves about this reality that's going on. Look for these signs. Look for the strange behaviour, these muttered comments that might be a little bit sinister that a kid comes up with. The bedwetting, the tiredness. And, one guy I was speaking to was a teacher once, and he was going on about a fellow who was an ex-criminal, and he went, but he was really thick at school. He didn't really learn anything. And I went, what you don't understand is that he didn't learn anything because he was in a state of hypervigilance, because he was so tired, because he was at night staying up all night awake, either being abused or in fear of being abused, not just by the staff, but by other inmates or pupils in his kids' home. And that's why his brain couldn't work, and once I said that, it sort of makes sense, as it would. It's commonsensical, but it's a difficult topic. It's, no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to read about it. And in doing so, it continues, in the darkness, in the shadows, and unaddressed with impunity. And that has to stop.
Well, look, thank you, Emily. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sidechat. Thank you to the mods. I just want to say myself and Uber have another show in about 5 minutes. We're going over Jack and Lily's parents' behavioral analysis from our one and only community member, the one and only Uber himself. Looking forward to this one. And again, thank you, John. Thank you, Emily. Big shout out to Ian. You'll all meet the rest of the crew this week, including Ian. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Sidechat.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, John.